Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and especially Bindu, thank you so much for traveling long way from Sri Lanka. The topic is very pertinent. Ever since we started transition to electric mobility, supply chain has been the biggest challenge. Most of the startups and electric vehicle manufacturers have been saying that it's a supply problem, not a demand problem. That's been the case for electric mobility. We have seen we have achieved the milestone in electric mobility. We have achieved 1 million sales unit in a year last year. That shows that we are no more transitioning, but electric mobility is going to be very soon mainstream, and probably the traditional industry will be slowly going towards either into a major transformation or change in terms of technology, or fade away or bow out from the industry. So before I begin, I'll ask my first question from Mr. Sudhendu ji. I just want to understand the government, NITI Aayog, the top think tank of the country. You have been at the helm of things. How do you see the current progress of the industry in terms of electric mobility? Are you satisfied, or you had some other expectation? How do you see the industry evolving? Is it in line with your thought process?
Thank you, Nabeel. The way you said that, yes, tremendous amount of satisfaction is there. But as it happens, the way industry expects from us, we do also expect certain things from the industry. So if you see the journey that has been since the inception of National Mission at NITI Aayog, National Mission on Transformative Mobility and Battery Storage, that was in 2019. And in a time span of some, say, 3.5 years kind of thing, the journey that has been, it has been absolutely fabulous. And one has tremendous satisfaction to kind of share with each one of you, and the way it was being said in the earlier panel, that now industry says that many milestones, many initiatives, many interventions, what government has done is something that is, amazing. And they say that they had never expected government to be so aggressive on taking this particular global disruption forward. So that is there. But yes, let me tell you that whenever you are attempting to bring about such a disruption to the country like India, and if you go through the story, how exactly such disruption takes place precisely, how it has been followed in somewhat 19-20 odd European countries which have taken to electric mobility, then you will see that it happens only when the political leaders, the policy makers, the industry players, and number of other enabling clusters, all of them are combined together. So until you are able to form a kind of Team India, you will not be able to succeed. So that is very clear. And the best thing today is I must compliment industry for that they have been behaving more or less, rather to a substantially very high degree, very, very responsibly. Okay, odd cases could be there. But still a lot of expectations are there. How to take the entire vibes of electric mobility away from the seminar and the like, those things to straight to the streets, that is a challenge. So to me, awareness is still a question. Okay, half of them, at least 60% of India knows about it, but what they know could always be in a cloud of doubt. So what you have to do is that clarification is needed. That is what they have done outside. So maybe some sort of national campaign, nationwide campaign for 2 odd years. And our success at vaccination program shows what is the value of such a campaign, what positive it can create. So similarly with respect to mobility, this electric mobility. And second thing is the topic that we are discussing right now, supply chain. We have got to have perfect control over the supply chain. I always say it, and more so when the people from industry are there. What is the national ambition? National ambition is not to make India only an EV using nation. It is very clear. We want to be EV manufacturing hub of the world. So now my question to Siam is on a daily basis that how many units you have exported, EV units you have exported, and what is the value? That is what I would like to know. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction when Tata say that, sir, Nepal is completely game for, okay, small state, doesn't make difference, at least a modest beginning. But in the same breath, they say that New Zealand is also trying that, okay, Indian vehicles should be there. On the buses front, they are saying that the European countries are looking for Indian buses. That gives tremendous satisfaction. So that is what let me compliment the industry, you know. I know substantial number of them must be around. So it's a great thing that we are doing together. And it will be pulled off. And I was told that in the morning, very, very aspirational, you know, forecasts were made. That is what it's good. Probably that should have been my script, but it's okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Very beautifully put indeed. And we are also contributing whatever tiny bit would be. For 7 years we have been doing this, and the purpose is only to communicate, keep people informed about electric mobility. Now the ball comes to in your court, Deepak ji. You have done it in the ICE segment. You are exporting to the developed market also, and you had a very promising ecosystem for ICE supply chain. Just want to understand how your backroom is now ready, the auto component industry is ready to support the kind of demand or the kind of projections sir also alluded to complete electrification of two-wheeler by 2025. Do you think your team or your counterparts are ready with this?
Nabeel, first and foremost, thank you for consistently inviting me to the EV forum. Interesting to actually have a supply chain panel where I'm probably the only supplier on the panel. Also, thank you for saying that the suppliers are a challenge or a problem, but I would also like to compliment Sudhendu ji for also saying that the industry has somewhat met the expectation, what actually NITI Aayog has started with. However, there is a long journey and long way to go. I don't think we're going to dwell upon it in terms of ICE, but I'm going to give you some figures. So you talked about the whole national ambition, and I think our auto industry, although quite competitive, quite widespread, it's still young if you look at it from a global history, right? I can say that you started probably 60 years into manufacturing, and probably 40 years is when mid-80s, when Hero and Honda, Maruti, Suzuki came in, it really started to transform. Today, I think we don't have the luxury of time. 3.5 years to probably next 5 years, there is going to be a huge transformation in how India moves. It's probably not just going to be only electric. As component guys, we are probably also encouraging all aspects of mobility. It could be on all different types of powertrain. The challenge, hence, for the component industry remains that number one, as India economy grows, the volume also would grow for the auto sector per se. We have seen there's a massive push, and I think Honorable Minister Gadkari ji is coming in the evening. He will definitely talk about how he's going to build more roads, and that means there are going to be more vehicles. So even ICE has a longevity, and with that you will need more investments in even getting the volume up. However, I think there is another dilemma of actually transforming in the new age, new tech mobility. And it's not just getting the partnership collaboration, but we also have to see atmanirbhar in the right prospect. Happy to state that the component industry over the last year, after I think forever being export deficit or import surplus, only last year we could actually match and balance it out, and I think even the first half of this calendar year, we've just been able to net it out. There are three challenges what I think the component industry faces. There is a frailty and fragility. With the frailty and fragility which has happened during the COVID, there is also a massive opportunity. But I think we need to keep on doing the investment cycle again and again. And with the rising commodity prices, interest rates, I think the industry now need to take a proactive approach. Number two, I think the policymakers have very well established that in the market, there are multiple opportunities, and again, I compliment NITI, I compliment the government by giving the component of the auto sector as advanced automotive technology, PLI. I think that's probably one of the biggest incentives you could do. But again, not everyone's going to qualify. Everyone will have to play their game to see how they can actually truly value add. And number three, I think there is a larger ecosystem which we need to generate. Component industry had been traditional manufacturers of components. It's not going to remain the same. With future mobility, we're going to talk about mobility as a service. We're going to talk about a lot more electronification. We're going to talk about a lot more software development. Is the component industry ready for that? I think there's going to be a different skill set which would be required. So I see this as three opportunities, or as you said, three challenges to be going forward. And if this aligned with collaboration which we need with our customers, with policymakers, and the supply chain partners globally, if you're able to do that, I think India is in a very sweet spot to play.
Thank you, Deepak. Sanjay, as an OEM, you are electric vehicle manufacturer, and you have been at the complaining end, means OEMs, that the supply chain is not catching up. That's what you have adequate demand spurred by the policy and the consumer interest also. By listening to Deepak ji and Sudhendu ji, do you think that the story of supply chain constraint is going to be passé, or you see there are still actual problems that you need to deal with on a daily basis? And what are those challenges that you are facing?
Thank you, Nabeel. I think the first thing I think I just would like to possibly correct Deepak saying you is the only supplier, because Sudhendu said that I want to be atmanirbhar Bharat in supplying vehicles to the world, and I think I find myself to be a supplier in that regard, yeah, if I wear that lens.
So we have kept one representative from all sides.
Yeah,
so it's a fairly balanced panel.
But it's a very balanced panel, and thank you, Nabeel, for that, because I do totally resonate and echo very passionately the India's opportunity actually to be the world manufacturing hub, not only for components but also for vehicles, as Sudhendu said. Coming specifically to challenges on supply side that you asked for that OEMs are facing, I think I somehow feel that it's a little overstated, the challenges there. One, that the moment you move from IC to EV, the complexity and the number of parts actually comes down very dramatically, actually 35 to 50% less. You know, if you take an IC engine, you're talking about 250 parts, and they just go away and become 5 parts in a powertrain, electric powertrain. So that complexity does dramatically come down. The problem therein for an atmanirbhar supply chain is that at the tier 1, we have a maturing ecosystem of suppliers. But the moment you go to tier 2 and tier 3, component and subcomponent level, there is dependence that, because it may be the same vehicle from customer point of view to move you from point A to point B, but what is inside, what is driving it is quite different. Yeah? And hence you need a completely new set of components and subcomponents which are driven very differently. It's not a mechanical scooter anymore, it's actually an electronic scooter now. Yeah? And this is a facet that even IC will have to face, if not today, maybe 2 years down the line, when they will have to be upgrading themselves in electronics. So now there are 5 specific components, if you to think, where there are supply. Other than that, pretty much out of the 200, 215 parts an electric scooter has as an OEM today, I don't worry about 205 out of 215, because I think India is absolutely world-class in supplying any and every part, which is 205. It's really now you break down to the electric powertrain there. You're talking about battery, talk about motor controller unit, talk about the MCU, in addition to HMI, which is a human machine interface, or some of the TFT clusters and all that. Virtually everything you break down to the next component level is imported today. India does not have its own source of either a production or a technology to beat what is available in the world. In battery, you talk about cell. Now, everything from policy side to be, in fact, extremely encouraged by the policy makers, and Sudhendu, thank you, and then your team for that. Whether it's cell or whether it's magnets or whether it's any other thing that we are importing, government has been really ahead of the industry, even in thought leadership, to give us the incentive. The first one, when it comes to cell, of course, you know that PLI got announced, and it's about 18,000 crore A check was signed for the industry to put up the advanced cell chemistry, and Reliance and Ola. Bhavesh was here in the morning today. They all invested in that. Yeah, now, can there be more could be done? Of course, and there is a view I have. Maybe in the second round of question, I'll talk about the policy there. I think there is enough. But more importantly, the responsibility is also of the industry to move the technology forward. I believe, while the other last panel talked about lithium having a 2-decade life, I am actually a contrarian view to that. I think when disruptive technologies come, the price performance of any new technology in kind of EV will double every 2 years, which basically means that the price of EV will get driven to half every 2 years, and the range will keep doubling, or the performance will keep doubling from now on, because we have hit the inflection point. In my view, I think we are just about a year away from inflection point for two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Three-wheelers, I think, is already there. Two-wheelers is a year away. So that's going to dramatically change this thing. So the challenge is what happens to the cell inside the battery, which is about 80% of the battery cost, and batteries are 35 to 40% of the EV cost. So that's a lot of dependence there. So I believe that lithium will very rapidly move. Lithium anyway, NMC is already moving to LFP, which is a good thing. That already has taken the NMC out of the equation, and it's replaced with F and P. The moment it's ferrous and phosphorus, you're already looking at India as a surplus thing. So there is already dependence coming down. The second part, to take lithium out of the equation and put it with sodium, is probably a 1.5 to 2 years from now. And hydrogen, which I thought our Honorable Prime Minister spoke even yesterday in Bangalore on the green mission, green energy mission of India, I think would be about 4 years away. Yeah. So my sense is, and that's a lot of assessment that we've done, you're looking at sodium dramatically driving down the cost by 35 to 40%. The important thing is it's sustainable, because 1 ton of lithium production takes 2.2 million liters of water. And sodium is 10,000 times more available than lithium on the planet, including India. So you're virtually looking not more than 5 to 7 years. Yes, there will always be lithium, 10%, but the majority of the growth will get taken away by some alternate fuels. That's the first thing. Coming to the next one, which is the motor part and the magnets, I think that's where the bigger challenge is. Because China controls almost 90% of the magnets, and magnets are required not just for our industry, for every industry, including the magnets or the rare metals in Bolivia and Eastern Europe, mostly Chinese have. And that's, the solution there is not to find magnet in India, because it needs massive amount of value addition to the magnet ore. I think the solution is technology without magnet, and that's where I think the SRM technology which is coming, or Toyota has invested there. I think we are very hopeful that some of those technologies, not magnetic technologies, will work in India to do that, and that will take care of the motor part of it, which is the second component. The third component is motor controller unit, or the HMI cluster, where semiconductors are being talked about, or IC or TFT screens are being talked about. I think India's semiconductor mission is very, very welcome. In fact, just last month, when Minister was in Davos, he talked about 80,000 crore investment for India's semiconductor mission is just a start. He said it's just a start of, and I'm very hopeful on that, because this is a boat India missed in the last decade. And I think if 80,000 crore is just a start, then there is a lot to be expected on that. And that's extremely important. While we may move out of China to Taiwan for doing that, Taiwan being the biggest semiconductor in the world, but still, this is a place which not only India needs for EV, but it needs for the general data revolution in the country, which is happening. I'm extremely encouraged with Vedanta and Foxconn's $20 billion kind of investment, which just got announced actually today morning. They are putting up this plant. This is going to be, it's a combination of cell chemistry, new technologies in magnet, and looking at the semiconductor investments in India. I think if you can do that, from about 64% local content today in my scooters and my rickshaws, I think I'll be 95% plus in about probably 12 months from today, if it can move that fast. So I'm extremely energized and hopeful that we are in the right direction.
Superb. One should be always positive. There are, of course, technological challenges and strategic challenges, but we have seen in the recent times that there has been some major logistical challenges that has disrupted the supply chain. And we have here with us Mr. Ranasinghe. Just want to understand, we saw the container crisis and all that. What's your thought? How can we make it efficient and avoid such crisis to happen, to have an efficient supply chain or undisrupted supply chain?
I think most of the participants and the speakers are from the technical side and the manufacturers of EV. I think we are just a port. Why we are here also, if I explain, we see beyond shipping and logistics, though we are a port, we thought of we need to understand our source market and the pulse of the EV manufacturers. So then only that we can provide the necessary facilities. And of course, we are a new port in the east-west shipping lane, just about 10 nautical miles away from the shipping lane. So we explore things and being vehicle handling, that means Ro-Ro, is our core business. And India is the market. Actually, I can say we are truly a well-wisher for the Indian vehicle manufacturing market, because we are directly benefited through your manufacturing. And we currently handle a considerable volume which is being manufactured at the moment in India. So we understand EV is the next generation, next development that we can see in the automobile industry. So we wanted to understand your thinking and accordingly to adjust, because we know for EV we need to be ready with new technology and etc. etc. So for that we realized that we need to read you and understand and get ready to serve you in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Mr. Ranasinghe. Deepak ji, I'll come back to you once again. When we talk about electrification, a lot of mechatronics or electronics are becoming the mainstay there. India, traditionally, when we talk about the supply chain or the supplier community, we were more of a mechanical industry. Now there's a huge shift towards electronics and software. How do you think this transition is happening in the space?
It's very two different animals, electronics and software. I think let me talk about software first. I think India has proven time and again that definitely there is a lot of competitive strength for software development and services provided globally. But has it collaborated with the auto sector when there is so much of software development happening? I think the answer is no. I think with the guidelines, and again, I think the ecosystem, because let's understand that, we spoke about China, we talk about how do we grow as India. We're not going to talk about just competitiveness on one product line. It has to be a competitiveness of an ecosystem. And when we talk about competitiveness of an ecosystem, there are some merits. For example, labor arbitrage. But there are certain demerits as well. Logistics is a demerit for us as a country. We have energy prices, which is a demerit. But in the same way, I think software, I will take it as a merit. Need to collaborate a lot more, and I think there is very much upskilling required as a sector to move from just, as I said before, a manufacturer to actually software. And I think there are various initiatives that the industry has taken and many companies are taking to actually enhance this capability. Electronics is a very different ballgame. I mean, say there has been a massive amount of SMT, right, infusion manufacturing coming in within India. I don't think we probably need to actually see, and it's pretty competitive. What is not competitive are the components for electronics, because there isn't any. There is policy enablers to actually ensure that in the future, and that is within a period of 2 to 5 years, there could be an economic or electronic manufacturing which would be more enabled in India. But again, it all depends on competencies and how we actually procure it, because the electronic components are also very easily logistically provided. So I think there is a lot to be done specifically on electronic, but I think the industry can take more advantage by more skilling than just manufacturing.
Mr. Sinha, I just want to understand the industry was getting weighted deduction on R&D that was lifted long ago. As we transition to a new industry, such incentives play a very crucial role. Apart from that, the close association and collaboration between the academia and the industry is something very important that we see in Europe, Fraunhofer and all that happening. As a think tank, what's your thought on these two aspects in terms of building a robust supply chain ecosystem that we talk about India?
So you rightly said that academy industry collaboration is very, very critical. And especially when we are talking of EVs, that is practically a computer on wheels. Rather, all the automobile today, they are computer on wheels. EV is rather a scale up. So we need a lot of R&D initiative. Now let me tell you that NITI Aayog has taken a lot of initiatives also. So one of the principal initiatives that we have taken is that today 16 out of 23 IITs, we have nudged them to create centers of excellence. So these centers are dedicated to sustainable engineering, different nomenclature they use. It is for battery, it is for automobile, different things are there, but precisely it is just focusing on EVs. But we know it, that won't do, that won't alone do. So what we have also done is we have reached out to the major OEMs and their CTOs and kind of connected them to these IITs, telling them that there should be a very, very specific problem statement that they should come out with within a time frame, with a funding, with kind of exposure to their own laboratories and their own assembly lines. They should be able to do it. Now industry also, they also do a lot of R&D activities. Of course, they are primarily focused on cost cutting measures kind of thing, not looking much beyond. So that is what IITs, they will have to do, they have got to do. And it gives tremendous satisfaction that these IITs, they are in a claim to say that we are going to do it. It's kind of thing. So when lithium becomes a kind of challenge, they said, okay, we are thinking beyond lithium, how to go ahead with the niche chemistry, that is what they are taking it forward. That is always there. As far as the first part that you mentioned about the incentives that were given on R&D that has been cut down, yes, that has been there, but let's see how we go about it. Okay?
So for Make in India, design in India plays a very important role. I understand you said that the industry is more concerned about cutting the cost. Somewhat I may concur that current R&D spend stands at about 1 or 1.5% on an average. So don't you think the government can also give it a bit of push? But I'll also ask Deepak ji, what's his thought on this? Despite being a 40-year-old at least industry, after if we talk about Suzuki came in, Maruti Suzuki, and still we stand at 1 and 1.5% on R&D. So both of you, starting with you, Sudhendu ji.
No, yeah, I will agree with you that R&D needs a greater thrust. That is, of course, that goes without saying. And the initiatives that is being taken, but yes, if there is something that is too specific to EV, that can always be taken forward, We can always pitch in, we can find out that where from it can be, we'll sort it out. That thing can always be done, yes.
So I think we don't do enough research. R&D is a very loosely held term which we try and use. We do a lot of engineering in India. I think a lot of academias and very reputed institutes, they do research, and I think that's where the industry and academia connected. I want to just qualify the statement. I might be making a little bit controversial statement as well now. I think there has been always an industry ask for incentives. I think now we need to look beyond that. Actually, maybe we don't need incentives. Incentives are just probably enablers and maybe make us non-competitive because there's too much incentives given. I mean, say we just basically rely it out. I think what happens here is that component industry As long as we are basically able to make as an ecosystem competitive, and I would urge the policymakers to actually look at all aspects. R&D is just one aspect of it. If you're able to look at all aspects of how and where we are lacking in competitiveness and how do we gain on competitiveness through stable policies, and I think that's where the attempt of PLIs were, that's where the attempt was this. I think that could probably go in a longer way. With the future tech coming in, we have to do engineering, we have to do more of the collaboration, and irrespective of incentive being given or not, I think you can see a lot of the component players are setting up global centers, engineering centers, as my company has done the same, because we found that that is a much more competitive ecosystem for a sustainable time for maybe 3 to 5 years, so that we are able to maybe fast track the engineering. So that's what my view would be.
So do you think the threshold that we have right now in terms of R&D spend going to go up, and we will be able to match those developed nation where the R&D spend is much higher? Do you think electric vehicle is that that will trigger the investment towards R&D?
I think if you were to look at it, if you're at 1.5% of the global value supply chain, you cannot be at 7-8% of engineering and R&D spend. It's clear. I think more and more as India moves up, I think the only way to move up would be to keep on spending more. Now, you have to also understand for a component industry, what is basically an Indian company or MNC company? If an MNC company is making a much more engineering center here, based on the competitiveness of the people here, and spending more and more in India for engineering R&D, and also enabling the ecosystem, I think it's great. So I think it will eventually move up, and I'll just give you a figure. Right now, I think it's about close to N component 1.9%, and about 5 years back, it was less than 1%. So just giving you that.
Sanjay, your thoughts?
Yeah, in fact, I strongly believe that while in principle I agree with both the gentlemen before me, but there is a different kind of incentive in different stages of evolution of an industry that needs to be given. And I think in EV, I agree actually with Professor Arnold, who talked last panel, I was hearing him, and now here. Look, I have spent a decade in telecom, and I've seen the growth from 2% penetration to 80% penetration of the industry from about 2003-4 till about 2015. I think rightly when the industry is growing in the early stages, and I'd come to the R&D point specifically, Nabeel, on that, the demand is being incentivized by making it affordable for an Indian kind of a customer and trying to bring sort of a parity, saying TCO, yes, you figure out. I don't think TCO needs to be Indian consumer is very intelligent, sir. I agree with that. But if you can make the entry price in a demand incentivized through the FAME subsidy kind of a route which has been adopted till now, and that also has a deadline, and I'm in favor of deadlines for such incentive. After industry reaches an inflection point, it needs to be responsible to get the confluence of other enablers coming to do that. So I think it's absolutely right. Now, what is the inflection point? That's a big question, sir. So when do you stop this? Now, typically, any experience in technology industry, whether you take digital camera, music streaming, data, telephony, take any of the industries in technology, typically it's anywhere between take e-commerce, anywhere between 10 to 15% is the scale, that penetration that you need. Now, where are we today? In electric three-wheelers, we've crossed 10%. We are at about 12% today. So I think that industry has reached an inflection point. And TCO is so compelling for a livelihood, for 18, 20 hour this thing, that it will pretty much self-sustain. But in two-wheelers, it's at 4.5%. It's still a distance to go. I would say about a year and a half to go. In three-wheelers, it's much, or in four-wheeler, it's much behind even there. The next incentive about R&D, 1.5% is not sustainable. Where do you put the money is also important. I think we should actually partner with government, academia as an industry, and put money behind fundamental science, because things are going to change so rapidly. Whether sodium, hydrogen, if that is the fuel of the future, then India should be ahead of the world. For example, just look at sodium. We talk about massive sodium reserves in India, and Reliance being a front runner and working on that. China has already announced an auto-grade sodium in the market this year. So you just think about that. So by the time we get ready with the biggest capitalized enterprise of this country, China would have possibly stole the march in a way in the world market, even if India can be consumed pretty much by that. So where do we put our money? So can we be the first in the world to get hydrogen? And such a beautiful byproduct of solar, it can be distributed through our kind of infrastructure there. So I say that yes, demand was rightly incentivized. It's probably a year away in two-wheelers to 2 years. Maybe four-wheelers would need a little more time beyond that also. And then move to fundamental core science rather than only demand. I think there could be some of those things.
Definitely multiple chemistry, even aluminum air and others are in play that will change the course, definitely. Mr. Sinha, just want to understand, we have a PLI scheme that has been well taken by the industry, and that's a great move to establish India as a manufacturing hub. But I think it is also equally important that India becomes a supplier of design and engineering. Do you expect that we should have something like similar on the line of PLI for R&D and design? Because that's a more profitable. Most of the developed economy, they have earned their money from there.
No, you said it rightly. That is why I mentioned about the IITs. In addition to that, my sense is that lot of skilling, upskilling, reskilling is required. So when I say India to be EV manufacturing hub, it is not only confined to manufacturing alone. We also want to be skilling capital of the world. So that is the reason why if somebody needs out there, let's say in Sweden, Norway, we are mentioning about. So if they are in need of manpower, skilled manpower, whether it is in manufacturing or in repair, maintenance, wherever, whichever stream they are looking for, that is where we should be able to kind of provide it the way we do in our marine sector, for example. So that is a definite, that is an approach. But yes, that is gradually, we will have to nudge it in a more aggressive way. As of now, I would say that probably skilling is there on the portion of electric mobility. In what I'm watching is that the OEMs, they are also going in for a lot of skilling drives for their own people, for their own employees, basically. So how to go about it, that is what we are thinking around. And you mentioned about R&D. Let me tell you, I was just trying to recollect the ecosystem of R&D, that some 8 countries where the maximum allocation is there. That is what you hear about. How exactly they go about it. So there is definitely a rallying point, A, and then there is an agency that takes it forward. But it is not that everywhere money comes out from the taxpayers' money. It is not like that. So what they do precisely is they create a consortium of stakeholders, partners, and all of them are kind of sharing the cost around to take the entire thing forward. And well, whatever dividends are coming out, they are sharing it around, sharing it among themselves. So that is also, precisely that is what, we are going about. So our sense is that it's a manufacturing as well as the skilling capital, both.
So before I open the floor for question, I'll ask one last question to Mr. Ranasinghe. You have heard the manufacturers, you heard about the design in India, and that we are putting all our effort. You tell us how your port is going to enable us that we are able to serve the global market in most efficient manner.
Actually, we have realized we are a new port, if I repeat. So we are not going to tell our customers, okay, you do this. Then you have to adapt to a very old formula. What we do, we ask, what do you want and how do you want it? We can do it since we are very new port, and that is one of the key reasons. We have identified there are a couple of reasons, there are a couple of items that we have to develop, in the sense we have to give best service, and we have to, we have to be, we have to make accidents as less as possible, like make it zero. And thirdly, we have to be ready for any sort of ro-ro cargo to be served at our port. So basically we have invested a lot on making, developing the service standards by doing trainings, education, all these things. We continuously do it. And also for making the accident ratio zero or as less as possible, we have hired experts, and we have done a lot of things on those area. Actually, we are not just talking on the point of, I mean, the port point of view only. So we have got a lot of praise from our customers. Very recently, also Mitsui Oil Lines awarded us for making 1.5 years zero accidents. So I think if we all know about the RoRo operations in the world, it's not a easy task. For last year, we handled almost like 600,000 transshipment vehicles. So we had only one accident. So that means the level of effort that we have put on this matter. And now we have realized we have to get ready for EV. Of course, we are working on these charging points and special towing equipments and expanding the yard areas. So some of the areas, I think in this forum, I have never seen anybody talking about this. That's why I just wanted to explain a little bit. So those areas, though you are not much concentrate at the moment, we as the port, though our customer is the shipping line, we know you are the customer of the shipping line. So so then that's why we wanted to understand your requirements and be ready. And currently we have a lot of facilities available for EV handling, and the rest also will be ready soon.
Thank you. Mr. Sinha, we have seen the market is evolving. As Mr. Jain also mentioned that we may not need incentives. FAME scheme is going on. Do you think there's a need for this scheme to be extended beyond the deadline that is coming next year? And also, we have seen some of the state government also pulling out the incentives. How do you see this?
No, in fact, gentlemen to my left and right, both of them said that incentives are no more required, you see. But I think that is a very aggressive statement. So my sense is that okay, but one thing I could always say that the way it is structured now, there will be a substantial change into it. Because we would be able to identify that in which areas will not need it, and then we'll have to pull it out, maybe in a staggered way, maybe in one go, whatever decision is taken as a kind of consensus. And then we have to go in some of those areas where hitherto we have not been pursuing so aggressively, so vigorously. So maybe, but my sense is that some sort of incentive should continue, A. B, it may not be, it should be definitely structured, restructured kind of thing. If you agree, and as you know, that even the FAME2 that you see today, it has gone through many of the modifications. And it has been the latest re-strategizing 2 years back, 21 I think. So that was the time which has brought about all the change. So probably that much thinking through we are already started. But I must compliment the industry is very aggressive. Before even 23 was setting in, they started asking me about FAME3, you see.
Thank you. So, yeah, please hand over the mic here first. The real he has been one of the architects of FAME. So
I have a very interesting anecdote to share with all of you. A lot of discussion is going on. I remember we launched FAME2 in April 2019. And somehow it came in the press that from such and such date, no two-wheelers will be allowed, ICE two-wheelers would be allowed. I don't know how many of you do really remember that. And then a meeting was called by the Vice Chairman, NITI Aayog, in month of June 2019, the first week sometime. And all the major actors were present in that meeting, including Rajiv Bajaj, or Mr. Venu Srinivasan, or Tarun Mehta, I mean everybody for that matter. And one side of the table very categorically said, should I name them or not, but they said very categorically, FAME or no FAME, we are going ahead. So probably it's an anecdote to be remembered by my successor here, and who should take it like that, yeah.
yeah, the mic here.
To my question to Sinha sir, I'm Saurabh, and we all are talking about FAME and, batteries technically contributing almost 60% of the vehicle cost. Now, as you wisely said, that the awareness during the COVID time brings most of the awareness in the consumer mindset. Now, do you think that we also make a policies to make consumer more aware on the first point called recyclable of the batteries, the second, the reusable of the batteries, third, the best price for their supporting these type of sustainable movement by the government? So my question is government working on these aspects?
First, let me say that all 3 points what you have mentioned, that is the points worth taking up, and there is a definite support from our side to all of them, all 3 of them. So very recently, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Wildlife, they have come out with, and we have been always into it, the revised guidelines for it, that how exactly this, the battery, the ones which have end of life, how exactly to go about it. And we are aware that there is a second life, there is a refurbished life, you see. So the recycling ecosystem is going to be very, very fundamental. That is there. In addition to that, once we know that there's so many critical minerals, elements, metals are already available out there, they have to be recycled, not only recycled, they have to be taken to that particular grade. The processing standards have to be raised to that level that the extraction that comes out is worth to be used in the ACC, Advanced Chemistry Cell. That is, there has to be a direct linkage. I have opportunity to go to some of these recycling units and see how exactly they do it. And let me tell you, they are very, very good. I mean, not that they have been able to achieve that standard, but they have, as far as the extraction is concerned, almost 90+% of stuff that is lying there, that is extracted in a safe manner. So that is there. So recycling ecosystem is going to grow up. That is why you saw that the Prime Minister talked about a circularity of economy. And for the battery as such, there is a special, one of the circular economy talks about the lithium ion cells, end of life lithium ion cells alone. So that is a focus. It is going to be developed. How it will, with time we'll come to know about it.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, because time is up, so we have to wrap up this panel discussion. Indeed, a great insight coming from all of you. Thank you so much once again for joining us today at ETAuto EV Conclave.